Hello everyone. So this lecture video is going to be for chapter 9. We're going to kind of do chapter 9 in two parts because this is a very long chapter and there's certain parts of chapter 9 that are not truly specific to inventory maintenance, and then there's some that are. So when you're thinking of a community pharmacy, again, we're talking about a retail pharmacy, and there's two areas of a retail pharmacy. There's the back area, that's where all of the prescription medications are located. So anything coming out of the inside of the pharmacy is going to require a prescription for the most part. The front area is where we keep all of our over-the-counter drugs, dietary supplements, medical supplies, and this is indicative in pretty much every retail pharmacy that you go in. Depending on the pharmacy or the store, some stores do not require the pharmacy to keep track of the over-the-counter or the front area of the pharmacy's inventory, like where, you know, the over-the-counter ibuprofen and Tylenol and all of that stuff is kept. Sometimes that is to the store itself where the rest of the groceries or other items are. And then in some facilities, it is the requirement of the pharmacy. So depending on that, where you work will be, you know, how you're going to be responsible for that inventory. But all pharmacy personnel, pharmacy technicians, pharmacists, pharmacy interns, and even extern students for pharmacy tech programs are required to maintain inventory and follow all of the policies and procedures within that facility. So the front area or retail pharmacies, I guess you could say, that include both a front area and a back area was really popularized by Walgreens, which started around the 1960s. And in this aspect, for retail pharmacy, customer service is basically the critical piece for survival and success of a retail pharmacy. Over-the-counter use of over-the-counter medications is increasing. There's many different reasons for that. Increased cost of prescription drugs, the increased cost and inconvenience of going and seeing a physician, lack of health insurance, now that the requirement or the penalty for not having insurance has been removed. Some people just, even when it was a requirement, some people chose to go ahead and forego getting insurance because the fee or the penalty at the end of the year was still cheaper than that what they would be paying out of pocket or be paying as a co-insurance or a co-amount through their employer. And then the over-the-counter items actually give us the ability to kind of self-medicate. The key to this, though, is that it's not recommended for people to self-medicate more than about 7 days. If you're treating something specific like a fever or anything like that, and it's hitting that 7-day mark, you should really see a physician because something else is probably going on. Many popular over-the-counter drugs are used to require prescription. So many of the items that we can find as over-the-counter supplements, Benadryl, ibuprofen in certain strengths, even Tylenol, Claritin, Flonase, trying to think what else, omeprazole or Nexium. Many of these items started off as prescription items only, and then were approved by the FDA to move as an over-the-counter item. High-dose ibuprofen is still only available by prescription. That is 600 and 800 milligrams. So there's a chart or a table, 9.1, in your PowerPoint and in your chapter readings that actually goes through kind of the common over-the-counter drugs that you're going to see. It gives you both the brand and generic name, and it also gives you an indication. This will help you on your daily assignment that you're going to have on Thursday. So your role as a technician within the retail pharmacy is you're helping patients or customers locate products. So many times you'll have patients come to your counter and, you know, they're going to say, where is your Maalox? Where are your Tums? Where's your ibuprofen? It's your responsibility as a pharmacy technician to know where those items are located in the front area, what aisle they're in, My expectation of my students and my graduates is that I expect you to leave from behind the counter and walk them to the area that they're looking for. Be that extra hands, extra set of assistance for them. Bring any over-the-counter related questions to the pharmacist's attention. So here's kind of this gray area for pharmacy technicians. If you have a patient that presents and they have a box of ibuprofen and they have a question on how to take it, you can actually answer that question as long as you're reading that information from the box itself or the bottle. You can answer any questions that can be answered if they were to read the label themselves. If the question involves an answer that you cannot get from the packaging of the over-the-counter product, the box, the bottle, whatever it is, then you must refer those patients to the pharmacist for counseling. We are going to sell and stock over the counters. We are going to order and rearrange the inventory, again, depending on what pharmacy or facility you work in. Removing stock when it's expired or it's recalled. Okay, we had a video on drug recalls. Even over-the-counter items are not protected from that. They're just as susceptible to drug recalls as anything else because the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, does oversee over-the-counter products. And again, you want to make sure that you're available and that you can show your patients on the over-the-counter product or the OTC product labeling where they can find some of the answers that they're looking for. Over-the-counter drugs have been found both safe and effective by the FDA when these products are taken for the intended use or approved purpose of the drug, as long as they're following all label requirements or label directions. Even some over-the-counter drugs or OTC items do have unwanted side effects. Some can be even dangerous, especially if they're used at higher than normal dosages. So that's why it's important that if there's any additional questions that they see the pharmacist. You can't just have a patient taking 800 milligrams of ibuprofen every 2 hours. They're going to build up toxic levels, and that's very dangerous. Over-the-counter cough and cold products should not be given to children under 6 years old. In fact, if you go into the pharmacy and you're looking for any cough and cold syrups or suspensions for kids, most of the dosing does not go below 6 years old, and they need to speak to the pharmacist. Again, use of OTC should be limited to 7 days or less. If the condition persists or whatever it is that you're treating persists, then you need to go ahead and make an appointment with a physician. Restricted sales of certain over-the-counter products. Now, in some states, Arizona is not one of these states, but in some states, some Schedule 5 cough syrups, meaning Schedule 5 is a controlled substance, are available as over-the-counter items. Typically, those are codeine-containing cough syrups, and in some states you can purchase some, a limited amount without a prescription, but in the state of Arizona you cannot. You must have a prescription for it. So this is just going to cover in the event that you were working in a state that this is allowed. So Schedule 5 drugs are things like codeine cough syrup, other things that are like phenobarbital that have a risk of dependence or addiction, but it's not as high as something as a Schedule 2 like morphine or Oxycontin. Federal law permits dispensing without a prescription with certain restrictions and certain requirements. So federal law says it's okay, but most of the states have enacted their own laws to say, no, we're not going to dispense these without a prescription. Arizona is one of those states. So what do you say, well, what happens if the federal law says yes, but the state says no? Pharmacies will always follow the more strict law. So in the event of Arizona State Board of Pharmacy has said, no, we're not going to dispense any C5s, particularly codeine cough syrup, over the counter. Since that is the more strict law, it supersedes federal law, and we will follow the more strict law. So the restrictions for those states that do allow it, okay, it obviously must be stored behind the counter, okay? We can't have just codeine containing cough syrup sitting on the shelves for people just to have at it. You can only sell 4 ounces to a single customer in a 48-hour period. So that's it. In 48 hours, they can only be sold 4 ounces of the cough syrup. Only a pharmacist or a directly supervised technician must or can make the sale. So typically the pharmacist will handle this, but if they say, yeah, go ahead, they have to be physically present and watching you dispense this. And the purchaser must be 18 years old and provide identity proving that they are at least 18 years old. Again, some states require a signed or e-prescription in order to dispense these. If you're in a state that allows you to sell it over the counter, you're not just going to pour it out, sell it to them. There's things that we have to collect. So one of those is that we're recording all of those sales in a logbook. And in that logbook, you are recording the name and address of the person that is purchasing, the date of the purchase, the date of birth of the purchaser, name and quantity of the Schedule 5 drug that you are dispensing, and then the name and initials of the pharmacist handling or approving that sale. Those record books or those records are all kept. So when they have state inspections or the Drug Enforcement Administration, known as the DEA, comes in, you have to have those records available for them to view. Other restricted sales. So most of you probably know that in 2005, you can no longer just waltz in and pull pseudoephedrine or Sudafed containing products off of the shelf. They started keeping those behind the counter. The reason for that, it was being highly misused in the manufacturing of methamphetamine. So in 2005, an act got passed that restricted the sale. So we keep all of those pseudoephedrine and ephedrine containing products behind the counter, and we can dispense those to customers upon request with some restrictions. So many examples are things like Mucinex D, Sudafed, Zyrtec D, Aleve D, see here, Alivert D. Okay, the D is that decongestant. That is the pseudoephedrine or the ephedrine contained in that product, and that is what we're restricting the sale of. Some states even require a prescription for it. The state of Arizona does not. So what are we looking for? Okay, we keep it behind the counter. So pseudoephedrine containing products is limited to a quantity of 3.6 grams in one day. So I can dispense up to 3.6 grams of Sudafed or pseudoephedrine or ephedrine containing products to a customer in one day, and a total of 9 grams in 30 days. So you're thinking, how are we going to keep track of this? A logbook, okay? Most of it has gone computerized now, which makes our lives a lot more easier. The purchaser must also be 18 years old, and they also have to provide a valid and current photo ID to be able to purchase these items. So within the logbook or the record book, when you're selling this item, you have to log specific information. Again, street address, state, zip code of the customer, their name, their full name, first and last name, the date and time of the purchase, the product being purchased, the quantity being purchased, and then you're going to have their signature. Many pharmacies will actually take their driver's license and scan it through into the computer, so it's keeping track of all of that. Other items that are kept typically behind the counter or in some sort of locked box, even if it's on the shelf, would be things like the Plan B, okay, Next Choice 1 dose, any of those medications that are used for, in the event that you have unprotected sex and you want to prevent any pregnancies from occurring. They are now available to women of all ages over the counter without a prescription. The kicker here is that if you're having anyone purchase this item, they need to speak with a pharmacist. And the reason for that is This medication is most effective when it's taken within 72 hours of the unprotected sex. So you don't want a patient who is thinking they're already a month or 2 months pregnant to use this item. It can, cause loss of the baby, and it can also cause severe birth defects. So when you have a patient coming in and ready to purchase it, they need to speak with a pharmacist, because a pharmacist needs to explain to them that this is most effective in that 72-hour window. It works by preventing the implantation of a fertilized egg. We do keep these typically behind the counter. If not, they're in a locked box. So dietary supplements, these would be things like vitamins, minerals, herbal products. The labels of these dietary supplements actually carry or list limited information, especially compared to over-the-counter products. So they typically say serving size versus, maximum amount that they can take per day. So the label for dietary supplements does not allow them to make claims about being a medical cure. They cannot make any of those false claims. So believe it or not, for these type of supplements, the FDA does not regulate these. And what that means is that they do not require these manufacturers to file new drug applications and prove that it's safe and effective. Manufacturers can just, start manufacturing multivitamins and sell it. Now, if there becomes an issue with, if we start to see a trend in this particular product and there's been 6 deaths, then the FDA will step in and remove it from the shelf. The other thing that you want to look for in dietary supplements is USP, the USP verified seal. So the USP is the United States Pharmacopoeia. And this seal means that drug manufacturer has voluntarily sent off samples of their product to have it verified. And I think that's a good faith measure for most of these manufacturers to show, hey, if I have a vitamin C product, I've sent mine off to be tested, and it has been USP verified that if it says 500 milligrams in that capsule or that chewable tablet, that's what's in there. Again, any questions specifically pertaining to any of these dietary supplements or anything like that, these patients need to be referred to the pharmacist. Vitamin and minerals, they have an RDA, or recommended daily allowance, which is the average daily intake level of a vitamin that is needed to meet the daily nutrient requirements for most people. Calcium with vitamin D helps your bones stay strong. Vitamin C boosts your immunity, and iron supplements help with boosting or preventing anemia. So we're going to kind of skip forward here to equipment or home health supplies that you can see sold in a pharmacy setting. So we're talking about things like thermometers, test kits, drug test kits, HIV test kits, blood pressure monitors, respiratory supplies like nebulizers and stuff like that, spacers for people that use inhalers, diabetic management supplies, so glucose testing monitors, glucose testing strips, and then other durable medical equipment known as DME. So thermometers, obviously many different types. There's some that go in your ear, there's some that scan your forehead, there's go in your mouth. Different types of test kits, pregnancy test kits, HIV, drug use. They even have ovulation cycle test kits. Blood pressure monitors. Many patients who are under the care of a cardiologist have to monitor their blood pressure certain times of the day and report that back to the physician. So they will tell their patients to purchase a blood pressure monitor. Respiratory management supplies, again, spacers that are devices to help patients who have difficulty with coordinating the use of inhalers effectively. Nebulizers is a machine that that makes the medication turn into a fine mist that allows them to deeply inhale it into the lungs using a face mask or a little breathing apparatus. If the patients are trying to get this covered through insurance, we do have to basically have a prescription written for these that have specific diagnostic codes on there for the insurance to approve it. We went through that. So insulin syringes are necessary for our patients to be able to self-administer insulin. Most states require a prescription for those. Some states don't. It just depends. Again, the glucometer to test blood sugar levels and the test strips that go within those. Other durable medical equipment examples would be things like wheelchairs, hospital beds, canes, orthotics. Orthotics would be like, those little boots that you can put on if you sprain your ankle, crutches, anything like that. Shower chairs, okay, raised toilet seats for elderly patients. This will actually be the last one because I think we're about halfway through here. So barcoding or barcode scanning technology. So a scanned prescription prompts offer for pharmacist counseling. Okay, so there's another law that as we get into that law section in the next week and a half, you are going to see it's called OBRA 90. This law requires that pharmacists provide counseling to patients on the use of their prescriptions. So scan Schedule 5 drugs or C2 through 5 drugs will prompt questioning for additional patient information. If you are a loved one of a family member that's getting a Schedule 2 drug, for example, Percocet or Vicodin, you are going to have to show an ID to pick up this medication even though it's not for you. Scanned of non-prescription drugs, so these do add sales tax. So prescription items do not have sales tax. If the patient has a prescription item and a bottle of ibuprofen, the tax is only going to be added to the ibuprofen specifically. No sales tax on prescription drugs. They do not add it to diabetic test strips or any durable medical equipment. OTCs and other merchandise are taxed, and that rate is dependent on the state. And we are going to go ahead and pause there because that puts us at our halfway point for Chapter 9. If you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call or email me, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Have a good day.